Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Today we're going to learn about the Angulimala Sutta. The name Angulimala is made up of two words, anguli, which means finger or toe, and mala, which is a garland worn on the neck. So, Angulimala means a garland of fingers. This wasn't his real name. He got this name because at that time he was a murderous robber. After he killed someone, he would cut off one of their fingers, the right index finger, and string it into a garland to wear around his neck. So, this robber who wore a necklace of fingers got a nickname, much like how people today might get a nickname like bull-headed hung or limping dung. It wasn't his birth name, but a name people gave him because of his terrifying reputation. Now, let's look at the text of the sutta. At that time, the Blessed One was staying in Savatthi, in the kingdom of Kosala. There was a ruthless robber named Angulimala, a bloodthirsty killer with no compassion for any living being. The sutta calls him a hunter. That's a bit strange for us, as it's different from the traditional stories we know. Because of him, villages became deserted, towns became deserted, and the kingdom became a wasteland. What does this mean? It means the land was desolate and laid to waste. The language in the sutta is very old, very heavy. So when we read it, we have to adjust it a little bit so it doesn't sound so harsh. One day, after the Blessed One had finished his alms round and eaten, he set off on the road towards where the robber Angulimala was. He was going there on purpose, and the cowherds, herdsmen, farmers, and travelers on that road saw him and immediately felt a sense of dread. They approached him and said, "Venerable, please, don't go down this road. There's a vicious robber named Angulimala here. He always kills people and wears a garland of their fingers. On this road, even when 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 people group together to walk through the forest, he still manages to catch and kill them all. This robber is truly extraordinary and powerful." The Blessed One listened to their words, but he remained silent and continued to walk. He was determined to go because he knew he had to save this robber. A second time, they warned him, but he just kept on walking. A third time, they warned him again, but he still kept on walking. When the robber saw the Blessed One walking toward him from a distance, he immediately thought, "This is truly a miracle, something so rare. On this road, even when 50 people walk together, I can kill all of them. How much more so for a single monk? It must be some divine power." This phrase, divine power, is a good way to translate the ancient Indian idiom, which literally means the will of heaven and earth. I'm going to kill him. With that thought, the robber grabbed his sword, shield, and bow and expertly pursued the Blessed One. Pursued here means he was running as fast as he could, chasing after the Blessed One. But the Buddha manifested his miraculous power. While the Buddha walked at a normal, leisurely pace, Angulimala ran as fast as he could, yet he still couldn't catch up. This was so strange. In the past, he could chase down a running elephant and catch it. He could chase a running horse and catch it. He could chase a running chariot, a running deer, and catch it. But now, even running with all his might, he couldn't catch this monk, who was just walking calmly and leisurely. So, he stopped and shouted, "Stop, Venerable! Stop, Venerable!" The Buddha quietly continued his journey. "I have already stopped, Angulimala. It is you who must stop." The robber thought to himself, "These followers of the Sakyan clan are people who speak the truth and uphold the truth." He had already heard about the Buddha and his disciples before this. He knew about the presence of the Buddhist community. So here, this monk who is walking says he has already stopped, and I, who have stopped, am told that I haven't stopped. Angulimala then recited a verse. Was Angulimala educated? Yes, he was very well educated. He was a man of great culture. You who are walking say you have stopped. And I who have stopped, why do you say that I haven't stopped, Venerable? I ask you to explain the meaning of this. What is stopped, and what is not stopped? Angulimala, I stopped all harm toward all living beings long ago. As for you, you are also a living being just like everyone else. Why haven't you stopped your killing? At that very moment, Angulimala woke up completely. In just a fleeting moment, in less than 20 or 30 seconds, with that one powerful sentence, Angulimala's mind changed instantly. I have long revered the great sage. This shows that he had already heard of the Buddha before. When the Buddha's miraculous power appeared, it made him wonder, could this be the Buddha I've heard so much about? Now this monk has entered the great forest. It won't be long before I can overcome my evil ways. After saying this, the robber immediately threw his sword and weapons down into a deep gorge. He then prostrated at the feet of the Buddha right there and asked to be ordained. The compassionate Buddha, the great sage with pure precepts, responded, "Ahai bhikkhu, come, monk." Just like that, in a single moment, this robber who had killed nearly 1,000 people became a monk. This is a case that seems to be one of a kind in human history. A person who committed extreme evil and in an instant became a monk who practiced the Dharma. Then the Blessed One and the Venerable Monk walked back to Savatthi, returning to the monastery at Jita's Grove. At that same time, King Pasenadi of Kosala was on his way because he had received a report that the robber was in that area, and the local military couldn't do anything about him. They were all terrified. King Pasenadi, who was also a martial general in ancient times, all the princes were skilled in military arts, warfare, literature, and martial arts, personally led his troops to find the robber. He couldn't find him, so he decided to visit the Buddha. His campaign had lasted many days. It wasn't a short trip. The troops had searched everywhere, but Angulimala had hidden so well that the king was annoyed and stopped by the monastery to see the Buddha. Seeing the king's annoyed and angry expression, the Buddha asked, "What's the matter, great king? Why do you seem so upset?" The Buddha often smiled and sometimes acted a little naive. "Is there some trouble at the border? Are the neighboring kings fighting with you?" "Venerable, there's nothing. The border countries are all at peace. It's just that there's a robber in my country named Angulimala who has killed so many people. So many regions have become deserted and no one dares to go there. That's why I had to personally lead the army to capture him. The local military couldn't handle him. That's how skilled he is." The Buddha then said, "Great king, what would you do if you saw that this robber had now become a true monk, living in accordance with the precepts, abandoning all evil deeds, abandoning killing, stealing, lying, and so on, and living a pure life? Venerable, if that were truly the case, I would offer that person all 4 requisites for life. But, Venerable, there's no way for such a wicked person to instantly become a monk who can live so purely within the precepts." At this moment, Venerable Angulimala was sitting not far from the Blessed One. The Buddha stretched out his right arm and said to the king, "Great king, this is him." The original Sutta text is very specific, mentioning that the Blessed One stretched out his right arm. In ordinary language, we would just say he pointed, but here the specific gesture is significant. This shows why we must read the Nikayas, because they contain small details that reveal the Buddha's demeanor. It wasn't a casual, unimportant gesture. The Buddha's gestures were important and intentional. When he raised his hand to point at something, the gesture was filled with power, dignity, and solemnity. It wasn't a casual movement like ours. The spirit of the sutta is in this very subtle detail. When the king heard this, he was terrified, and his hair stood on end. The Buddha, seeing his fear, said, "Great king, don't be afraid. There's nothing to fear." The king gradually calmed down and looked at the person sitting there quietly. He thought, "This is the very person who killed nearly 1,000 people." The king, seeing the Buddha's assurance, slowly regained his composure, went to the Venerable and asked, "Venerable, are you Angulimala?" "Yes, great king." "Venerable, what is your father's lineage? What is your mother's lineage?" "My father's lineage is Garga, and my mother's lineage is Mantani." This was the true information. "Venerable, may the Venerable Gargya Mantaniputra be at peace. From now on, I will offer you the 4 requisites." Puta means son, so Gargya Mantaniputra means the son of Gargya and Mantani. The Venerable declined the offer, thinking that he lived a simple life. "Thank you, great king, but I have enough robes." At this point, King Pasenadi turned back to the Buddha and praised him, saying, "It is truly wondrous, truly rare. The Blessed One has subdued a person whom no one could subdue. He has pacified a person whom it seemed impossible to pacify. He has made tranquil a person whom it seemed impossible to make tranquil. Venerable, I couldn't subdue this person with weapons, sticks, or swords, but the Blessed One has subdued him without needing weapons, sticks, or swords." After his praise, he said, "Venerable, we must go now. I still have a lot of work to do." The king took his leave and returned to his palace. The matter was considered to be settled peacefully. After a month-long military campaign, it all ended smoothly, without a single problem. Later, one day, the Venerable went on his alms round and saw a woman in labor, in a very critical and difficult situation. She was probably having a difficult birth, so her labor had been going on for a long time without her being able to deliver. The Venerable felt deep pity for her, thinking, "How painful living beings are! How painful living beings are!" That day, after he returned from his alms round, he told the Buddha what he had seen and how much the suffering of beings had moved him. The Buddha said, "Now go back to that place and say this: Sister, since I was born, I have never intentionally taken a life. By this truth, may you give birth easily." "Venerable, if I say that, I'll be lying," he replied. "In reality, I have intentionally killed a lot of people." It's important to note this point in the sutta. If we compare it later with other texts like the minor suttas or the elders' verses, we'll find many different details. But in the sutta, it's confirmed that Angulimala himself said he had killed people, not just cut off their fingers and let them go. He killed them first, then cut off their fingers. If that's the case, then, Angulimala, you should say this: "Sister, since I received my noble birth, I have never intentionally taken a life. By this truth, may you give birth easily." What does noble birth mean? It means ordination. In our lives, we are born twice. Once when our parents give birth to us, and a second time when our preceptor gives us the Dharma and we enter a new life. In the past, we were born into a worldly life, but today, as we enter the Dharma, we enter the life of the noble ones. Of course, we aren't noble ones yet, but we are in the lineage of the noble ones. Therefore, we have to try our best not to be too attached to our families. Instead, we should love all beings equally and try to practice with diligence, uphold our morality, and meditate diligently so we can be worthy of our noble lineage. Today, we have been born into the lineage of the noble ones, so we have to try our best, just as the Buddha said. The Venerable returned to the woman and said to her, "Sister, since I was born with a noble birth, I have never intentionally taken a life. By this truth, may you give birth easily." And right then, the woman gave birth easily. In the next passage, it says that the Venerable lived with non-negligence, with a diligent mind, and not long after, he attained the path and became an Arahant. The next part, I have some doubts. It says the part where he was beaten and had stones thrown at him, his head broken with a stick, is mentioned after he had become an Arahant. But I have my doubts. It should have happened before, because after that, the Buddha advised him to be patient, telling him, "You are now reaping the fruit of karma that you should have suffered in hell for many years, many hundreds and many thousands of years." If the Buddha had to give an Arahant advice like that, it would be strange, as Arahants have the strength of patience. So when he was beaten and the Buddha advised him to be patient, I believe he had not yet attained the path. He must have attained the path later. Here's a passage we see like this. One morning, the Venerable put on his robe and took his bowl to go into Savatthi for alms. At that time, a clump of dirt thrown by someone hit his body. A stick thrown by someone hit his body. A rock thrown by someone hit his body. This is the old way of writing. If we were to say it today, we would simply say, the Venerable was hit by people throwing dirt, sticks, and bricks at him, and his head was broken and bleeding. They wrote it in a roundabout way back then, probably to make it easier to remember. So the Venerable's head was broken and bleeding, His bowl was shattered, and his outer robe was torn. The inner robe was not torn, so that was okay. Then, after his liberation, he said this verse, "Whoever was negligent before, but is not negligent now, illuminates this world like the moon freed from clouds. Whoever has done evil deeds, but stops now thanks to good deeds, illuminates this world like the moon freed from clouds." The poem is long, but I won't read it all. He read a part. "I am named harmless. I was a killer before. In the past, his name was Ahimsaka, which means harmless. Now I am called by the right name because I harm no one. Before I was named Angulimala, swept away by the torrent of a waterfall. I took refuge in the Buddha." What does it mean to be swept away by the torrent of a waterfall? It's a difficult thing to explain because we've never been swept away by a waterfall, so we don't understand that feeling. In that moment, when he met the Buddha, he was completely captivated by the Buddha's prestige, power, and his brilliant and powerful personality. He was strongly drawn to him, and at the same time, the karmic connection of a teacher and student from thousands of lifetimes came back. He was strongly and invisibly drawn, as if swept away by a torrent of a waterfall. He couldn't resist kneeling at the Buddha's feet and asking to become a disciple. That feeling, only a person who has been in that exact situation and state of mind can understand it. Normally, if we're not in that state, we don't understand the feeling of being so powerfully drawn to someone, like a waterfall sweeping you away. It's the same for example, if you monks at some point feel deeply moved by the Dharma. Say one day you enter a temple and you see the Sangha, you see the statue of the Buddha, you hear the temple bell, and your heart is so moved that you can't resist, and you decide to leave home and become a monk. That person has also been swept away by a waterfall. Or sometimes, a monk meets a former teacher from a past life, and you feel so moved and excited that you know you must follow this person to practice. That is also being swept away by a waterfall. It is invisible, it has no form. It's just a feeling, but only a person in that state of mind understands it. Swept away by the waterfall of the truths that are skillfully taught. The truth I follow is the supreme truth. Come, monk, to me is a wonderful welcome. No one advises me to follow evil thoughts. I have attained the three knowledges. The Buddha's truths are complete. The Sutta is like that. Now, let's analyze it a bit. The story of Angulimala is a very famous one in Buddhist texts. A person who was extremely wicked, who had killed so many people, suddenly in an instant changed his mind and turned completely towards goodness. The fact that he was about to kill the Buddha, but in just a few short sentences, in a few tens of seconds, he suddenly knelt down, prostrated at the Buddha's feet, and became a disciple, is a dramatic change that seems to have rarely, if ever, happened on this earth. It's very rare. We know that people don't change their nature easily. It's incredibly difficult to teach a bad person to become good. So hard. I know this because I've been a teacher myself, and there have been many cases where I failed to teach. Not everyone who comes to me becomes a good person. There have been many who couldn't change, even though I talked to them over and over about a simple mistake. I have failed before, and when I talk to other teachers, they complain about the same thing. It is not always easy to help a person change their heart to become better. So, when a tendency has accumulated in our minds from the past, it becomes a strong force that's hard to change. A very powerful inertia. Maybe that person has a karmic connection with us to be a disciple for a certain period, but because of the karma they've sown in past lives, the bad things have accumulated so much in their hearts that even if they have a connection to be a disciple, it's not forever. They will leave and nothing can be changed. Such situations do happen, even when we try our best to teach them. So, transforming a person is incredibly difficult. And changing our own minds is also hard. Not easy at all. Just think about ourselves. Let's not even talk about teaching others. Just for ourselves, to improve our own practice is very difficult. For example, we all know that if Buddhism doesn't have compassion, it's no longer Buddhism. Knowing that, we try our best to keep our compassionate heart and love all living beings, right? But is it easy to do? How many years have you been practicing? Look back and you'll see you still don't love anyone. You can't even stop gossiping in the classroom. Or, for example, when your fellow students criticize you, do you still feel sensitive about it? Do you still feel hurt? The monks might have a lighter karma in this regard, but women are more susceptible to it. That discomfort is jealousy. Jealousy is hard to let go of. When you see someone better than you, you don't want them to be. This is a very dangerous thing. If you have a jealous mind, it makes your soul petty, and all your merits will gradually disappear. You can never become good because you aren't happy for those who are good. I'm also afraid of jealousy. I'm rarely affected by it, not because I'm so great, but because I was usually good in school. For example, in the secular world, I was always first or second in class. When I came to the Dharma, I was also first or second in my class with my fellow monks, so I rarely have anyone to be jealous of. But I'm still afraid. I'm still afraid that one day I will meet someone who is so much better than me that I'll get jealous, and all my merits will disappear. So I have to be on guard right now. I'm not an Arahant, so I must be cautious. The best way to guard against it is, whenever I hear someone praise a good person, I must say to myself, I'm so happy for them. Sometimes, I even share the good things I know about people with others and praise them. Praising others is a powerful way to kill the jealous mind in our hearts. We have to do that. So here, you might have a jealous mind or you might not. We don't know, but please listen to my advice. Imitate me and be on guard. And the best way to cure and to guard against jealousy is to praise the good people you know. A person who practices diligently, who studies well, who is handsome, praise them too. Person who cooks well, praise them too. That is, if anyone has something good, praise them and let others know, and you will naturally eradicate jealousy from your heart. We see that changing our inner self isn't easy. It's difficult. But here, Venerable Angulimala changed into a completely different person in just a flash. This is very strange. Now, let's look for the cause of good and evil. The cause of good and evil isn't easy to find. If we want to change a person from bad to good, from evil to good, we have to know the cause and fix it from the root. Then everything will be good. But where is the root? This is a headache for the whole society and the government. There are so many crimes, but there are not enough methods to reform people. Where is the root? People continue to be wicked and continue to fall. But if we can find the cause, it's easy to fix. The cause is right here, just a little bit, revering or slandering noble ones. That's all there is to it. If a person in a past life has ever revered a noble being, then naturally, their good mind will grow gradually over many lifetimes. But if a person in the past has slandered a noble being, then their evil mind will also grow gradually. So there are some people who are wicked in a fixed way. No matter what you say, they don't change. There are robbers who are arrested and put in prison, and they're almost brought to the firing squad, but they never regret it. That's the result of an evil mind that's been fixed for many lifetimes. These people must have slandered noble beings in past lives. But there are some people who, even if they've done evil, quickly regret it and seek the path of good. These people in the past have had some karma of reverence for a noble being. Just that little bit. And here we see, why is it like that? This karma can be explained in two ways. One is on the level of spiritual karma, and the other is on the structure of the brain. For example, in our heads, we have this brain region and it's covered by, what is this hollow? But on the outside, it looks like this. It looks beautiful, but inside, it's a hollow skull. And here is the brain with its many layers. For example, when we have a thought of revering a noble being and we praise a noble being in our heart, it naturally affects the good part of our brain. This good region naturally develops strongly. That's the connection in brain physiology. For example, when we have the thought of slandering a noble being, it naturally affects the evil region of the brain. So our instincts of selfishness and hatred burst forth. That's the connection of karma in brain physiology. Or, for example, scientists have also found that there's a region of the brain responsible for sexuality. Whether sexual desire arises or not is due to this brain region. So here, when a humble thought appears, when a thought of revering a noble being appears, it affects and destroys the desires of this brain region. So this person loses all sexual desires. But if a thought of arrogance or slandering noble beings arises, it stimulates and strengthens the sexual brain region. So this person becomes filled with excessive desires. This is talking about the psychosomatic structure of the brain. But if we talk about the spiritual aspect, it's the same. When we revere a noble being, the karma is that it makes us gradually have the personality of a noble being. So the good mind naturally blooms. That's karma. But if we talk about brain, physiology, it's like that. So here, revering a noble being creates a good mind, and slandering a noble being creates an evil mind. It's a simple matter. The key is just that little bit. But sometimes we don't know it, and it can ruin an entire country, an entire generation. So, with children, too, it's very important to let them believe in noble beings and fairies, because it makes them have a noble being to revere, and their good mind naturally blooms and grows. It makes it easy for them to become good people. We see that in regions where people truly believe in God, they are also more likely to be good people. But if a person believes in the Buddha from a young age, it's truly precious. They are so pure from a young age that it's difficult for them to become an evil person when they grow up. They might have some evil karma, but because they have the karma of revering noble beings, their mind has a resistance that can fight against evil. So it's like that from a young age. This is a dangerous thing. Usually, in the classroom, friends pass on bad thoughts to each other. In schools, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, families don't know that they're passing on lewd works to each other. They secretly show each other lewd books. They secretly pass around pictures of naked women to look at in class. The teachers don't know. The parents at home don't know. But if that child from a young age hasn't been taught to revere the Buddha, their soul has no resistance. When bad works are shown to them, they accept them, and their soul becomes dark immediately. It's dangerous. But if a child from a young age is taught by their parents to revere the Buddha and believe in the Buddha, when a bad work is shown to them, they will reject it immediately. They won't accept it. That is the resistance. The mind of reverence for noble beings is natural. If a child from a young age is told fairy tales about fairies and the Buddha, it makes them have faith in the Buddha and heaven. It becomes a resistance in their soul, and they are easily a good person when they grow up. But if you don't let them believe in anything and only believe in the ordinary treatment of physics, they'll be more likely to become evil when they grow up. This is something we've also been affected by. Therefore, if we want to build this country to be a good one, we have to think about the youth and let them revere noble beings from a young age. It will be easy for them to become good people when they grow up. As for a person who slanders noble beings, the immediate karma is that they become a bad person with no morality. The karma further away is that they become insane. That's the karma of slandering noble beings. It's incredibly dangerous. Our personality naturally falls apart little by little. I once met them. I used to live in the area of a temple, and there were 4 monks who specialized in slandering others. When they talked to each other, they would always find a venerable to criticize or a senior monk to blame. All 4 of them had the same habit. Sometimes I wasn't happy about it and I would argue, but they were too fierce, so I gave up. I was just a young monk, so I went to another place to protect my own soul. They just had that habit. I waited for the karma to happen, and it did. I saw it happen. The first one, his karma was tragic. He died. The second one, well, their personalities just fell apart. They fell little by little. The last one, the 4th one, was a decent person. I thought that maybe this one had some other merit, so even though he slandered others, he didn't lose his personality. But then he fell too. In the end, he also fell. I was truly scared. Criticizing others, attacking the respectable, makes our personality fall apart. Therefore, we must be cautious. We shouldn't talk about the mistakes of others. If we can advise someone, we should, but don't get angry inside or talk nonsense outside. That's the main cause. The secondary cause is that when we praise the good of others, we will also get the same good. That is, if we praise someone as calm, we will become calm. If we praise someone as compassionate, we will get compassion. So karma naturally comes. Morality is correct with cause and effect. It's very natural. For example, as we just said, when we revere a noble being, morality naturally appears. This morality is natural, it's not forced. But for example, if we don't have the karma of revering a noble being and we want others to know that we are moral and good, it will become forced. For example, we walk and act like we're calm and leisurely, speak politely, and use our hands gently, and later it looks like a drama, because it's not from the right cause, but from a forced act. So don't pretend to be a moral person. Instead, truly revere the Buddha, and we will naturally become a good, moral person. It will happen on its own. So I keep saying it over and over again. Practice from the basics. Never give up prostrating to the Buddha. Every day we must prostrate to the Buddha a lot to have enough merit to practice for life. When we're lazy about prostrating to the Buddha, be careful. Our merits are gradually running out without us even knowing. A few days ago, I met a fellow student. He's actually my nephew, my real nephew. He disrobed and now he's come back to be a monk. When I met him, I was surprised. I comforted him, gave him some money, and advised him just one thing because I was busy and couldn't say more. I just said, you must prostrate to the Buddha a lot. Prostrate to the Buddha a lot from now on to keep your merits and practice for life, because before you disrobed, you rarely prostrated to the Buddha. That's a very clear cause. So lay people who want their life of practice to be smooth and to be able to be ordained must now also prostrate to the Buddha a lot. And monks who want to be able to walk this path for life and in other lives, and to become a great monk, a senior monk, must also prostrate to the Buddha a lot every day. Don't give up. It's important. I keep talking about the basic merits. Don't lose them. It's the same. Slandering noble beings makes our evil mind appear strongly. Criticizing noble beings or criticizing others' mistakes, we will also get the same mistakes. If we criticize someone for being hot-tempered, we'll get angry in a few days. If we criticize someone for being greedy, we'll also eat so fast that we don't have time to chew. That's how karma is. Just yesterday I read a newspaper, Saigon Jai Fong, about a journalist's story that is unexplainable. But when we understand karma, we understand it right away. This young man's name is Ha Dukon. He was in the FIS organization, the new FIS organization, which fights against black and colored people. They only glorify the white race, especially the Germans. They fight fiercely, and this young man worked enthusiastically. Whenever he was called, he would say to get the colored people out of this country and only leave the white people in Germany. Then one time he got sick, and after he got well, his whole body turned black. Just a few days ago. Now he's hiding at home because he himself hated black people so fiercely. Now his whole body is black. If you look closely at his face, it's the face of a European, but his skin is the skin of an African. He is in great pain, wrapped in a blanket, not daring to let anyone see his face. We don't understand why, but when we understand karma, we get it right away. So, you monks, don't criticize black people, or else you'll become all black. So when you meet a white person, just praise them. When you meet a handsome person, just praise them. Just praise, and one day you'll become handsome. The nuns, too, don't bother to get your nose or lips fixed. Just meet someone and praise them. You're so beautiful, so beautiful. A few days later, you'll naturally become beautiful. So it's not a waste of time. We'll see that there are cases where good develops into more good. In reality, good and evil don't have a clear boundary. We are often somewhere in between. In our hearts, we have both good and evil. For example, we might be good in one aspect but bad in another. But if we are diligent in prostrating to the Buddha, we are gradually pulled towards perfection. But if we are arrogant, we are gradually pulled towards extreme evil. Of course, there will be karma. When a person is pulled towards good to the point of extreme good, what happens? That person attains meditation and becomes an Arahant. But if this person is pulled towards extreme evil, what happens? Hell happens. But here we see there are 4 cases, from good developing into more good. This person is good, and every day, they get better and better until they attain sainthood. There's a person who's good, and then later they suddenly become evil. And there's a person who's evil but is changed to be good gradually. And there's a person who's evil and becomes more and more evil. These are the 4 cases. The cause is in their past lives. In the past lives, there were stages where they revered noble beings, and then they stopped and lost faith. So in this life, in the first stage, they are a good person, but in the next stage, they are an evil person because they revered noble beings for a period, and then later they slandered them, changed their mind, and lost faith. As for the case where their good mind towards noble beings is firm, in the next lives, good will gradually develop until they are completely perfect. And when evil becomes good, when good becomes evil, we should pay attention to this. Good and evil change like that because of the causes and conditions in past lives. The stage where we attacked noble beings, the stage where we revered noble beings, in accordance with those stages, we are changed in this life. So we look at Angulimala. He was good for his whole life, but only had 6 months of being evil. In those 6 months, he killed nearly 1,000 people. Before that, he was a good person. After he became a robber and killed nearly 1,000 people in 6 months, he became a monk and was ordained, and then he attained arahantship. So at that time, if we looked at that small period and concluded that he was a wicked person, we would be looking at it too narrowly. Only the Buddha knew the full story, so he was determined to save him. There are people who are good. For a period, I've met such a person. I met a young man who, before the liberation, was a gangster, a bad guy. After the liberation, he went back to the countryside to farm, and he accidentally met a teacher, but after that, they didn't meet again. He was good for 2 years, and then he started to act up again. He continued to cheat and steal money from the teacher and disappeared. He was good for 2 years. So people are like that. Sometimes they are evil for their whole life, but have one period of being good. As for Angulimala, he was good for his whole life, but was only bad for a period of 6 months. So people aren't fixed. This is due to the karma of past lives. So the period when a person's good side appears is because in a past life, at some point, they had a mind of reverence for a noble being, but it was just a little bit, so in this life they are good for 2 years. As for Angulimala, there was some karma in his past life that made him a murderer for 6 months. Now, we'll study a bit more based on the elders' verses. According to the minor suttas and the elders' verses, Angulimala's name was Ahimsaka, which means harmless. Why was he named that? Because he was the son of a Brahmin, a religious advisor to the king of the Kosala kingdom. We don't know who the king was at this time. Was he the father of King Pasenadi? The night he was born, all the weapons in the city of Savatthi lit up. The astrologers knew that this child would become a robber and a killer. At that time, the king asked, "What will this child be like?" They predicted that he would kill people, but then he would return to a good life, so the king spared him and didn't order to kill him right away. To create an impression, his parents named him Ahimsaka, harmless. He had an extraordinary physical strength from birth. We see that he alone could fight 50 people, or he could chase a running deer and catch it. His strength was like that of a mythical hero, no less. These are rare people in history. In the case of Vietnam, we also have many such people in our history. For example, we now study literature, but in the past, their studies were different from ours. They studied many subjects. They studied writing, poetry, a little bit of classics, fortune-telling, martial arts, and some other professions. It's the same as us now. So he was skilled, he was a cultured person and a very good student, the best in his class. Angulimala. So he was always favored by his teacher and his teacher's wife. He was handsome, skilled in martial arts, had strength, was smart, and a good student. So his future was also bright. We should pay a little attention to this. Historians now who study the past don't know what people studied back then. They think they only studied literature. No, in the past they studied many subjects. As I often say, historians now who study the scholars of the past in Vietnam, They think that the scholars only studied the doctrines of Confucianism and only knew about history. No, a true scholar studied many things. They knew the classics of Confucianism, the I Ching, divination, fortune-telling, all of it. They had to know geography and astronomy, and also medicine. They had to know how to make medicine. They knew numbers, that is, they knew astrology and mathematics. They also knew martial arts and military strategy. That is, a scholar in the past was skilled in many things. We shouldn't think that a scholar was a weak person who couldn't even tie a chicken. No, a scholar in the past was very skilled in martial arts. The scholars who are still left today, if we have the chance to meet them, are also like that. A person who writes beautiful Chinese characters, who is good at poetry and literature, but if they need to fight, they will surprise you. In the past, they were like that. But now we misunderstand. Because historians don't study thoroughly. They think that scholars only knew literature. No, they were very skilled in martial arts. The same with Angulimala when he went to study. He was so skilled that his teacher couldn't beat him in a fight. The teacher taught him the martial arts, but his strength couldn't equal this person. He was too extraordinary. As for the story that his teacher tricked Angulimala into killing 1,000 people and getting 1,000 fingers to bring back to him so that he would teach him the last secret techniques and he would become the greatest in the world, there are two theories. The first theory is that the teacher's wife suddenly fell in love with the student, and when her husband was away, she tried to seduce him. But the young man refused, because he was a decent person with morality. She couldn't have his love, so she became hateful. Women are often like that. When they can't have love, they turn to hatred. I've also been a victim of this. I know a lot about this. A woman's heart, I don't know why, but when they can't love, they turn to hatred. In this theory, Angulimala also suffered like that. When his teacher's wife's sweet words and seduction were rejected, she became his enemy. She told her husband, "When you were away, this Ahimsaka seduced me, but I rejected him. Now you must kill him, but you can't beat him in a fight, so you should plot like this." The husband was angry, but he knew he couldn't beat his student, so he listened to his wife's advice. He set up a plan. He called his student and said, "You are the best student I have. Now you must kill 1,000 people and bring 1,000 fingers back, and I will teach you a secret technique, and you will become the master of the world." At that time, the old evil karma arose, and Angulimala couldn't distinguish between right and wrong, so he took his sword and left. The second theory in the elders' verses is not like that. It was just because of the jealousy of his friends. There was no story of the teacher's wife seducing him. It was just that Angulimala was so good that he was praised by the teacher and his wife, and everyone around him admired him. So his fellow students hated him and slandered him with some dangerous words that made the teacher also hate him. How did he hate him? We don't know. Then he also came up with the trick to trick Angulimala into killing people. The story happened like that. So here, Angulimala's evil mind suddenly arose, and he killed people without mercy with his strength. In the story, it says that when he was a robber and a killer, his mother heard the news and was so sad. She told her husband to go and advise him, but his father said to leave him alone. "He's so bad. I don't consider him my son anymore." It's just like now, isn't it? If a child is bad, the mother is sad, but the father just gives up on him. The same is true now, but his mother couldn't stand it, so she went alone to find the area where the robber was said to be, to advise him. Angulimala, after killing a person, would cut off a finger and dry it in the sun to make it shriveled. Then he would tie it with a string and wear it around his neck so he wouldn't lose it, to bring it back to show his teacher that he had enough 1,000 fingers. When his mother was approaching from the edge of the forest, Angulimala was sitting on a big tree branch, watching the road with his bow and arrow ready to ambush. From a distance, he saw a woman walking toward him. At that very moment, the Buddha also appeared. He came to stop him, because he was afraid that Angulimala would kill his mother and then be unable to attain the path. This person killed, but he had the merit to attain the path. But the Buddha was afraid that in a moment of anger, He would kill his mother and couldn't attain the path. So the Buddha appeared between him and his mother. Angulimala threw his bow and arrow down, and the story happened as we heard. He was subdued by the Buddha's power and became a disciple. But before meeting the Buddha, he had already heard about him. He had a little reverence in his heart. So when the Buddha manifested his miraculous power, he thought, could this be the Buddha I've heard so much about? So when the Buddha said a few words, he woke up immediately and threw everything away. It must be the karma of many lifetimes, not something that happened naturally. Here we see this. Killing many people was a destiny, because when he was born, the sign was that all the weapons in the city lit up. So we see that a person who does great things, it's not a coincidence. It's not because that person worked hard for a lifetime, practiced, studied, and grew up to become a great person. No, it's the destiny of past lives. It's a destiny. We say this destiny is karma, but this karma is too fixed. For example, you monks, your ordination is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. It's a destiny. In a past life, you have already sown some karma, some merits, so now you can be ordained. And the lay people sitting down there, you are not ordained and have to live a family life. That is also a destiny, not a coincidence. And for example, a person who becomes famous when they grow up, who knows, maybe one or two of you will become famous and do many great things for the Dharma. That is also a destiny. You might be a normal student sitting here now, but who knows, in the future you will be a great monk, a great venerable who is famous and does many good things for the Dharma. You don't know. When you're not famous, you don't know. You think it's because that person works hard, studies well, and is skilled. No, it's a destiny that is already there. A destiny that is already there. We remember, according to the formula, that there is a cause from the past. Then it leads to the action. We call this action karma. Then this karma leads to the result. This result is the situation. The situation is suffering or happiness, or we go to heaven, or we return to this world to enjoy merits, and so on. It's all like that. So in this life, when we do many good things or do evil things, it's called the karma of this life. But there is a cause that makes this life become a robber, or there is a cause that makes this life become a high-ranking monk who attains the path. It's not something that happens out of nowhere. It's not out of nowhere. There is a cause. Who can guess why? Angulimala suddenly became a cruel killer, but his karma was not too severe, and he still attained the path? Who can infer this? You monks, you must contemplate karma for life. When you encounter something strange, you must contemplate karma. If you can't, just pray to the Buddha to bless you, and after a while you might know. You'll be enlightened about karma in many ways. In the future, you'll write a book about karma that's better than mine. You'll write a book that's better than Karma and Result, for me to read for fun. I wrote the book Karma and Result, but sometimes it doesn't fully express the idea. So you monks, you must contemplate karma now, so in the future, you can write a new work that's better than Karma and Result, for me to read for fun. Who can guess? Why did Angulimala become a cruel killer for a period like that? But his karma was not too severe. I just talked about it. This fellow student said, maybe, of course, maybe. We can only guess. Nobody knows for sure. Maybe in a past life, he was bullied by 1,000 people. They killed him. They hung him on a tree and killed him, and those 1,000 people stood underneath and cheered in unison. And he died with a grudge. It was that grudge that made him take revenge today. If we are harmed by others but we don't have a grudge, we won't have the action of revenge. His cause was the mind of grudge. So now he takes revenge. It's the same now. For example, if someone insults us, curses us, and we don't get angry, we won't curse them back in the future. That person will be cursed by someone else to repay their karma, not by us. It's the same. For example, we are killed, but when we die, we don't have a grudge, so in the next life, when we meet that person, we won't be angry or hateful. But that person will be hit by a car, or a tree will fall on them, or something to repay their karma. It's not that they will be killed by us again. So this is the thing. That's why the Buddha taught us to be patient. Don't hold grudges against anyone. Always be calm in the face of hatred. Only love can erase hatred. It's to prevent us from having evil actions in the future. Angulimala was killed by 1,000 people in a past life, and he had a grudge when he died. Now it's his turn to take revenge. The situation came and the teacher tricked him, so he became a killer for 6 months. His nature was a good person from a young age. He was good. He lived in a well-behaved family, and then after he was subdued by the Buddha, he became a true monk and practiced to attain the path. He was only bad for a period of 6 months and extreme evil. The karma could be like that. And that karma was so strong that it became a destiny that he would become a killer. In the elders' verses, it says that he only cut off fingers, but in the middle-length suttas, it says that he killed all his victims. So whatever it is, I think that later many people softened the story because they were afraid that if he killed so many people, how could he attain the path? So they said that he only cut off fingers. But I believe the sutta is correct that he killed all his victims. He had a reason to kill all of them. As for the change of heart from extreme evil to extreme good to ask to become a disciple, it was a sudden change, but it had a cause. The time had come, and it had to be that way. And the Buddha also chose the right time to save him. Sometimes we can blame him. Why didn't you appear sooner when Angulimala was just about to kill, to save him? You waited until he had killed nearly 1,000 people and then you saved him. People can blame the Buddha like that, but here we see that karma is stronger. If the Buddha had come sooner, he still couldn't have saved him because the karma had not yet come. The cause and condition had not yet come. The grudge had not yet been settled. Those people had not yet paid off their karma. So the Buddha couldn't have saved him at that time. If he had come to argue with him, he would have taken his sword and killed more people to have enough 1,000, and then he would have regretted it, and sought the Buddha to be ordained. It would have been the same. So the Buddha waited for the injustice of the past life to be settled, and he appeared at the right time. He followed him with his sword. The cleverness of the Buddha here is that we must understand karma so we don't blame the Buddha for saving him too late, which caused too many people to be killed. Karma is like that, and the Buddha can't interfere. In the Buddha's life of teaching, there are two completely opposite cases. One is Angulimala, who went from an extremely wicked robber to an Arahant. And the other is Devdatta, who was the Buddha's brother-in-law, who lived a good life in the royal palace, had good morals, and then followed the Buddha to be ordained and practice. He attained meditation, but then he turned around and opposed the Buddha fiercely. He tried to divide the Sangha into two and demanded to be equal in honor with the Buddha. It was a completely opposite case. And until he died, the Buddha still couldn't save this person. He had to go to hell. These are two opposite cases. So we see that in the Buddha's life of teaching, there were all kinds of things happening, all kinds of situations, from which we can learn many valuable lessons for our life of practice and for our Dharma work in the future. These are the two situations. The Buddha had to give up on Devdatta, but he could save Angulimala. Here we see about good and evil in people like that. We can see a person who seems good but can suddenly turn evil without us knowing. And we also don't lose hope when we see a wicked person, because maybe there is still some karma from the past that will make that person turn to good without us knowing. So we can be forgiving to people but still be firm and cautious, not easily believing. That is the lesson today, talking about good and evil. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Let's get up and sit down. Let's get up. May all the merits be transferred to all disciples and all beings so they can all attain the Buddha path. Outside, flowers fly in the hazy mist. A bird's call spreads like a verse. And in the garden, we listen to the sutta. In silence, we listen to each drop of crystal clear rain, each babbling brook, each transparent sunbeam. Outside, flowers fall in the hazy mist. In silence, we listen to the wondrous in us. We listen to the wondrous in us. Outside, flowers fly in the hazy mist. A bird's call spreads like a verse. And in the garden, we listen to the sutta. In silence, we listen to each drop of crystal clear rain, each babbling brook, each transparent sunbeam. Outside, flowers fall in the hazy mist. In silence, we listen to the wondrous in us. We listen to the wondrous in us.